Welcome to my show. It's a guest here. Her name is Brittney Hobbs. Mrs. Brittney, how are you doing, ma?
I'm doing really good. Excited to be here.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Brittney. Firstly, you are a pain liberation coach. You are also a clinical pharmacist in your experience. Can you please, Mrs. Brittney, discuss more about yourself and how you are doing currently now, Brittney?
Yeah, so I have been a clinical pharmacist specializing in pain management for getting close to 15 years now. And in that process, really saw that my patients weren't getting the healing and the benefits and returning to living the lives that they wanted to live through traditional pain management methods. And that sent me on this journey of exploring not only for the things I was going through in my own body, but how could I bring all of that into my exam room and ultimately into my coaching business to really help people return to enjoying their lives again.
That's very, very inspiring. And regarding to the experience you've had, have you written any book or are you planning to write any book, Mrs. Brittney?
I definitely have ideas for writing a book. I'm also raising and homeschooling two young children, so I'm just waiting for about another year before I dive into um, becoming an author on top of everything.
Hmm. The love of children is very, very wonderful. Even I myself is very massive, honestly speaking. I would like to dive to the point of the pain reprocessing therapy, Mrs. Brittney. We do not know how it's, differ from traditional pain management techniques. The way traditional does theirs is more different from the way the pain reprocessing therapy we do it. So what do you think pain reprocessing therapy and how do you think it's differ from the traditional pain management, Mrs. Brittney?
Yeah, I think that's a really important question right now. And I think we're in really exciting times. We're on this brink of a huge paradigm shift. And something that I notice is what's coming out in the science tends to not show up in our clinical systems or our healthcare system for about 20 years. And so getting the message out in ways like this is really crucial to getting people the hope that they need. And so with traditional pain management, the way I see that is it's more about finding the body part that's broken and pointing our finger at it and then figuring out how can we suppress that symptom, right? And with pain reprocessing therapy and with some other things that are currently being studied, it's more focused on actually our with chronic pain, our body has this really great ability to heal itself or to kind of remold itself or function, even if it was damaged, and to move on. But our brain and our nervous system can get stuck in this place of still throwing out a red flag or having an alarm go off, shouting danger, danger, danger. And what pain reprocessing does is it helps us to come back and take an active role in reprogramming those those messages that are coming up to the brain. Is this truly threatening, or are we actually safe now and we can rewire this, and instead of having it go this way and throwing up the alarm, it can now go this way and be like, oh, this is normal for us. This is okay, and the pain signals can then come down.
That is very, very huge insight when it comes to the pain reprocessing therapy. And when it comes to chronic pain, we do not know probably if it's works with all type of pain. There's headache, there's a lot of pain in our body that we definitely have. So do you think the pain reprocessing therapy, work for any type of pain, or do you think it's best suited for some certain type of pain condition, Mrs. Mrs. Brittney?
Yeah, so I think is still being fully delineated, right? I think we don't have 100% idea of just how effective it's going to be in every type of pain. But what I've seen and what we know for sure is it's very effective for what's called neuroplastic pain. And so that's the type of pain where we've essentially learned and kind of created certain coping mechanisms that lead down a certain avenue. And and there's different ways to assess for whether or not we have neuroplastic pain. That can be things like did the pain show up without an injury, or did it show up several hours or several days after what we're logically trying to connect to an event? Um, did it show up during a time of high stress, or are our symptoms inconsistent? Meaning, on one day or at a certain time of day or during a certain activity, does our pain go up, but it's better at other times? If we have symptoms that show up in different parts of our body. So if somebody has, say, migraines, but they also have irritable bowel syndrome and they also have, chronic lower back pain, right? We're learning that it's very unlikely to have three different pain diagnoses going on, and it's more likely that it's our nervous system on high alert. And that those are sources that pain reprocessing is really great at rewiring. Also, chronic pain tends to be more common in people who have had child adversity or experienced trauma in childhood. That creates a huge sense of unsafety in our world if we're not kept safe in childhood for different reasons. And so that impacts how our nervous system views the world, which sets us up for being more likely to experience chronic pain. Certain personality traits can also contribute, which can also be rewired, such as perfectionism or people pleasing or having high anxiety levels or being a more anxious person. Um, those are highly linked to being more apt to developing chronic pain. And again, if we think about some of the energy behind those personality traits, it tends to be more focused on what can we find that's wrong? How are we, or for for perfectionism, right? People are scrutinizing what's imperfect, what's wrong, and that scrutiny and that focusing on everything that's wrong kind of trains the brain to focus and have our whole world revolve around everything that's going wrong. And that raises our sense of alarm versus people pleasing. I look at that as we tend to try to make sure everybody else is taken care of, and normally to our detriment, and ignoring our own needs. And again, that's going to raise the alarm system in our body.
Definitely very, very powerful message, honestly speaking. Because all this pain that we have different background that it came from. It could be from the childhood, it could be from what we do on a daily activities that you usually cause this chronic pain. Even sometimes I remember my time during last year, I just usually use this paracetamol. I just usually use because the pain was really, really huge. A lot of things, figuring it out will definitely work and it will really improve that person in one way or the other. And I also like to dive to the point of exercise. There could definitely be some exercise that could definitely work regarding to the PRT, that is the pain reprocessing therapy. So, what do you think are some of the exercise that you feel like can be used to reduce pain regarding to the pain reprocessing therapy, Mrs. Brittney?
Yeah, so there's a couple that come to mind. One being a little bit of what we just touched on is, thinking of muscles. The more that we use something, it gets stronger. And if we are focusing on everything that doesn't feel good or that isn't going right or that hurts, that's like strengthening that muscle in the brain to highlight everything negative in life, right? And that lifts up this kind of sensation of everything's going wrong or not feeling good or being really painful or miserable, versus once we recognize that that might be, and I think that's a societal thing or a cultural thing too. There's almost this sense of competition of who who has the highest stress day or who can suffer the most. And how can we shift that? And a simple way to do that is, how do we start focusing on maybe what feels less bad or what feels neutral, and working our way towards what feels good or what's going right or what did I see a little improvement in today. And that starts to strengthen this other muscle, this kind of more positive muscle. And it's not mind over matter. It's training our brain on what do we really want to highlight? What is the highlight reel in life? And something I liken that to is, if one example I've heard thrown around in different scenarios is, if one day we go out and we decide to buy a white car, and before that we didn't really notice any white cars on the road, but once we buy that white car, now our brain is seeing all these other white cars that are driving around. And the same concept can be applied to this noticing everything negative versus noticing everything positive, and which one do we want to strengthen. The other exercise that's really emphasized in pain reprocessing is something called somatic tracking. And so what that is, so to start out on why it's really important is when we have pain, none of us want to sit there and be with it and wallow around in it. We want to escape it, distract ourselves from it, fix it, get rid of it, anything to not have the pain. Yeah. And but think about that. What else, if we think of pain and everything that kind of heightens pain as an alarm system, if we're wanting to get rid of something, get away from it, fix it, distract ourselves, that's telling us that that's something dangerous and something that we need to remove ourselves from as quickly as possible. And so that's going to raise that alarm. And so with somatic tracking, what it's doing is it's having us slow down and start tuning into our body. So a lot of us live up in our heads most of the time, and we lose track of what's going on in the rest of us. Yeah. And so
Mm.
somatic tracking is how do we kind of slow down and start noticing what's going on in our body? Not just what's going on in the area where we're having pain, but what's going on everywhere. Can I feel my back touching my chair? Can I feel my feet on the ground? Can I feel my clothing making contact with my skin? And then, and there's more I could guide into a deeper place of that presence. But then you start letting your conscious mind drift to those areas that are having the pain. And we bring a sense of curiosity to it, and we're not attaching trying to fix it. We're similar to when you watch the clouds go by in the sky, we have no impact on what those clouds are doing, right? We're just watching, and what shapes are we going to see? What speed are the clouds moving at? What's going to come on next? And we're bringing that same thing to those sensations in our body. What if these sensations were a color, what color would they be? Do they stop abruptly here, or do they fade out? And as I watch it, does that intensity grow, or does it lessen, or does it all of a sudden jump up to a different part of my body? And we're just like sitting there watching and being like, wow, this is pretty cool on what my body can create and just how quickly it can shift. And all of a sudden, we're shifting out of this, oh my gosh, I can't handle this pain. I just want it to go away. And all of a sudden, when you practice, it's like, wow, my body is pretty incredible on what it can create and how it can shift. And um, and that lessens that alarm system, and that can start to change this relationship with those sensations or the pain in our bodies.
That is a very, very big insight, Mrs. Brittney, because one has to just try is our best. It might not be easy, but constant practice will definitely help to get these points to just relax and figure it out. Not just complaining, is this side that is paining me? Let me look, use once you just calm down, where do I think this pain is coming from? Where exactly? It really, really helps. Not to fix the problem, but to just analyze where those situations are coming in. And that's why I will have to dive to the point of success for story, Mrs. Brittney. From your experience as a pain liberation coach, you could have some success stories some people have done, which has really, really helped them to relieve this pain, even with what you said of recent. So what do you think are the success story you think that significantly, reduce or eliminated, if possible? We don't know if it always eliminates, but reduce their pain through the pain reprocessing therapy, Mrs. Brittney.
Yeah. So with the success stories, what I commonly see is just people's minds being opened to this possibility of, this isn't how it has to be. I'm not stuck. My body's not broken. This is something that can be retrained, and I am being given the tools on how to do that. We're none of us are sent into this world with a manual on how this very complicated vessel of ours works. But this is like handing a really big manual to somebody and being like, this is how this works, and this is what can make a really big change. And it's giving people an active role in their care. And instead of giving medications that suppress the nervous system or chemically try to calm down that alarm, we're actually giving people the tool that this is how you take your power back. This is how you can now calm down your nervous system. And just again, knowing that there's hope that this can be changed sometimes is, I've seen that with some of my clients, that giving them that hope and this little bit of education on the possibilities, and all of a sudden they take that and they run with it, and that's all they needed. And with others, we might need to look at, different aspects of what makes up their life, whether that's their daily routine, whether that's certain relationships or boundaries at work, or the food, or feeling safe moving. And we kind of work through those things to shift, how can this feel safer, how can this be more nourishing, or what needs to be let go of that's bringing a lot of stress. And a common thing is, how can we get people to turn off the news so it doesn't make them feel like the whole world is falling apart, right? It can be simple little tweaks that can start to have big momentum shifts.
That shows that little things could just cause tremendous shift and even make someone body really improve in a large way. And that's it also make people understand that it is really not really, great to jump into conclusion with the body. Even I myself, I normally this when I just say that I have headache, I'll say, okay, this is my problem. I just, to analyze it is just the best thing. Check it. And even the pain therapy is a very, very great one someone can also do, which will really improve and help that person if the person feel like, I think this is getting out of hand. And for those who feel like there is no option, they don't think they can get through the point of this pain, they could not get, they feel like this pain cannot, I don't feel like it will really, really leave me. What advice do you have for them, Mrs. Brittney?
Yeah, so a couple of things. So my clinical brain likes to sometimes think in equations, and a really powerful equation that I think of is pain equals fear plus sensation. And so really, like, what is increasing in fear could be substituted for other words like frustration, or blame, or stress, or anxiety. For bills, right, that come in. It can be replaced with a lot of things, but starting to think of it in that way, if pain's going up, okay, what is over here that's increasing this sense of fear, or threat within my system or my environment? And another thing to think about, again, traditional approaches to pain management is very passive. It's all about what can somebody else do for you or do to you. And what I see as what's really successful in changing the story is, what can you do for yourself? What inputs can you change to get a different output? Because if we keep putting in the same inputs expecting a different output, it's just not going to work. So we have to start looking at our life and what things are we willing to shift to try to change that pendulum or change that outcome in a different way. And I truly think that there's always hope. And that's something that's really easy to lose sight of when you're dealing with so much pain. It's really hard. Um, but I do think that our science, and also weaving that together with some what they consider alternative practices, can take us a long way and opens up a whole new realm of hope and what's truly possible in these bodies that are built and created to heal themselves if we just give them the right tools and the right space and the right kind of I think about that sense of slowness. If we slow down and give them the right space, they can do pretty miraculous things.
It's definitely not easy. And pain is one of the most tremendous thing. Even some people they just feel like this pain is just too much. I would rather just leave this world because of this pain. To know how
Yeah.
pain is very powerful. It comes constantly, something that just don't stop. But to have that type of mindset, slowness, and to have those shifts, there might be some things one is doing, that could be causing that pain. Maybe having those shifts could definitely help because that is just the solution that we feel like could definitely help that person. It's not how fast, okay, I'm having this, let me know, but let's give that body the time to fix it. So I think the body needs that space. We need to just give it its work to do what he has to do. Then let's see how the outcome is going to go. That is very, very powerful, Mrs. Brittney. And lastly, Mrs. Brittney, there's a question I normally ask during the end of the show. From our forefathers, there are a lot of things that do exist during our forefathers' time that is missing in our time today. If there is anyone or anything you would like to bring back to our time today, what do you think that thing will be, Brittany?
I think something that really needs to be brought back is this really our power, right? Our power to take care of our needs and not feel like we have to put that aside because we have to take care of X, Y, and Z. But what do I need to take care of myself right here, right now? And that takes us taking our power back from where it's leaking everywhere else in our lives.
Exactly. Every single thing evolves in this life, and bringing such tremendous, beautiful, beautiful things to our time today will definitely, definitely improve this world in a better place. Pain is something that is very tremendous, but getting to know how one can deal with it will help someone in a very, very, very long way. And I also want to sincerely thank you for the opportunity and the time. This is a very, very important topic. Thank you so much, Mrs. Brittany.
Yeah, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to share this information. It was great to meet with you and be with your audience today.
All right. Have a wonderful day, Mrs. Brittany. Bye bye.
Bye.